Yes, I would like to start by introducing the report and saying that there's some really good things happening. We are very pleased with how team's operating. Certainly the last few days have been trying and for the team dealing with quite a significant weather event. Happy to take questions. I really just wanted to highlight one thing that was in here. We mentioned in here that we had a Key Act event coming through that was better than Ed Sheeran, and so we've got Stan Walker coming in, but I don't think we had a date for Stan Walker. Easter weekend. Here we go. It's coming through on Easter weekend, and we're really excited about that. And particularly for our youth, so he'll go out to the village and spend a bit of time with youth, and that's really the driver for bringing Stan into the Wairau. I think it'll be a huge event. He's bringing his whole crew, so we're really excited about it. Otherwise, I'm happy to take questions, Your Worship.
Okay. We'll take it. Everyone's read the report and was open for questions. Only the first question I got is Carpson's organised Stan, haven't they, obviously? So yes. Are they running that as a loss? Are they anticipating loss on that event?
They're anticipating a profit on that, and then the profit from that would go on to support the project at Carrington Park. I don't think it'll be much of a profit, yeah. But they are looking for some profit.
Okay. Stan must have done a good deal.
They've been really well supported.
Yeah. Oh, right.
So not just us, but other community funders.
Has he done it for free?
No.
I thought it was just from one Cussy Road to the other, Stan.
Why don't you have that conversation when he comes?
Maybe I'll have to have that conversation when he gets here. I might even offer to let him record with me.
10 guitars. Yeah.
I'm sure he'd be delighted.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Jerry Campbell. Questions, please. I heard that. Yes, Councillor Ayling.
Just a quick easy one. How long is the trial of the soft plastics and battery at the station going to be going?
That's a great, I thought.
I would say 6 months at this stage, but the feedback that we've had from the community so far is that it's definitely a winner.
Cool.
It's lots of use. We've had to order new buckets for the batteries already because we've already got the one that's there. So it's been a great success. So
fantastic.
Cool. Carrying on.
So if there's community support, lots of
Okay.
community support, which we would encourage, the trial will continue on and be permanent. We'd like that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor Ron. Jeff, on page 97 in your Parks and Reserves report, some overhanging tree branch cutback notice have been issued and more likely to be issued in the coming weeks. Just I've been driving around and I do notice there is still a lot of overhanging trees and more so hedges that are encroaching right out onto the footpath, some of them up to, close on 900 millimetres. So are the cutback notices going out in bulk, or are they going out to people that are basically flaunting the law?
Perhaps I could answer by going back a month or two. Normally at this time of the year, the Parks and Reserves team would be a lot more onto cutback notices and trimming hedges and bushes and trees in our reserves. But because of the really wet summer we've had, they've spent much more time out mowing. And so a lot of the work that would normally be done at this time of the year has been delayed a little bit because they have had so much grass and weeding to do in our reserves. So they are a little bit behind in terms of pushing out on cutback notices and ensuring that our pavements and our roadways have clear lines of sight. But we are trying to push forward on this at this stage, and I think you're right. There's more that can be done, but at this stage, we're hoping the community will help us as well, because it has been a, very, very big growing season.
Mm. Some of the ones that I notice, they're not just this year's growth, they're several years' growth, and they just haven't been trimmed for years,
I'm happy to take them and pick them up individually and issue notice, particularly where the footpath is pushing people onto a roadway, or the roadway, when you come up to an intersection, the line of sight for that intersection is impeded by vegetation that should be cut back, then we should really be issuing notices. I'm more than happy to take them.
My main concern is around schools, in particular, the South End School footpaths on both sides of the road. I have noticed school 9:45 in the morning, 3:15 in the afternoon, when you get that influx of traffic on the pedestrian, on the footpaths, that they are getting congested because there's basically a metre of footpath under hedges. It shouldn't be.
Okay. Thank you.
If, this is probably not a very technical term for a major project, but is there a date that you would regard as sort of practical completion for the wastewater ponds, and soon? Is that?
Phase.
Practical completion is a very technical term. We have a contract under NZ 3910 with Stage 2 contractor, who's CHP Earthworks, and there is a term in their contract called practical completion, and there is a particular date that term refers to, and a whole lot of consequential things. So practical completion is when we take ownership of the asset and we say, yep, it's functioning right, it's doing what it's meant to be doing, there are no faults or defects that are major. And so it's practically complete, and we will take over and begin using it. You're absolutely right. The target date for practical completion has been 30th of June. At the moment, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, and we're hoping to bring that forward. So at this stage, we're hoping to potentially have that in May or potentially April of this year, and that will be practical completion. That will, I'd like to have a bit of a public day. And
That's what I was getting at, because people are asking me, when are you going to finish this thing?
Yep, 30th of June is the official date. We expect it to be before then. You will be informed at least a month in advance before we hit practical completion, and we will be planning a public open day and a blessing on the site before we take over ownership.
Photographer from the Times Age and that sort of thing.
And a reporter, hopefully.
And his worship in the swimming pool.
I don't do the swimming pool.
No.
Like for sure. Yeah. Other questions? Councillor Ayling.
Just a question on the new planting plan in the CBD. Are we looking at having, rather than replacing flowers every couple of months, are we going to have grasses and that kind of more sustainable thing going through town?
That's correct.
Okay.
So that's exactly the plan. The beds inside, particularly on that State Highway 2 area, becoming challenging for the teams to constantly weed with, there's State Highway 2 it's a major traffic zone. So yeah, we've switched the planting regime there to be grasses, and something that is highly tolerant of being left alone for a little while without the teams having to get out on the state highway and risking themselves with weeding garners.
Great idea.
Any other questions? Councillor Cretney.
Thanks, His Worship. Jeff, you've mentioned on page 101 about the 12-month sampling starting. You managed to fill up reservoir 1.
Mhm.
Does the reservoir need to have a ongoing supply of water going into it for the sampling?
That's a good question. I can't answer that off the top of my head. Perhaps I could take an action and get back to you on that one. Councillor Cretney, I know at this stage, Reservoir One is currently operational. Well, is currently in use, temporarily in use. It's not reached practical completion yet. The other two reservoirs still have some work to go. The initial reservoir was filled with rainwater, so we weren't doing sampling from rainwater solutions, and the rainwater allowed us to bed in the lining so that it compacted down against the dirt, compacted the dirt that was there and settled into the base. We're now using Reservoir One for overflow when the intake gets overloaded with wastewater coming in. But I can't answer your question around sampling and that regime, so I will take an action and get back to you on that one.
Thank you. And the other one was on page 103, just around the sump repair that was that occurred on Belvedere Road. Was that on the corner of Belvedere and Tabner, where the curb and channel was replaced? Was the sump repair at that corner there, where there's been issues with drainage during stormwater?
Again, I'm going to have to can I circle back with the team on that one with you rather than.
It'd just be good to know where that sump was repaired and upgraded, just for the community to understand.
I can.
Because that's always a pinch point at that corner there, so if that's been upgraded,
I noticed yesterday that there wasn't the usual level of surface water.
Yeah.
Came back on that, and there was on other roads sort of when I further out, so hopefully it has rectified that.
So
Councillor Della, yeah.
Thank you, Bishop. Jeff, on top of page 103, in December program, we inspected bridges at those different roads. Is there work to do on those bridges, or did they all pass inspection?
At this stage, I haven't heard back that there were any work to do on those bridges. They've got a rotating inspection regime, and I guess what we were doing here, and so there's a deeper report that's come through from the roading manager on this, and my suggestion was that we bring that through to policy and projects, because it is a very comprehensive report on the roading team and their work and their forward work plan. And he was, Twinkle in this case, was highlighting the fact that they've been out and they are actually ongoing inspection regime for bridges and culverts and road maintenance. And they were just the ones that they did in the December.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So just on page 107, you've mentioned that there was an incident where someone was
Thank you.
threatening a councillor.
I know she'll go over that.
And that it's making you relook at your working alone policy. I just wonder if you could talk about that a little bit and what costs that would bring to us having two people doing jobs like this, or what your plan is working forward in this space.
Yeah, so that incident was a very unfortunate incident. The animal control officer went out to talk about taking a dog, and somebody who was in the same building but who was not the dog owner came out to talk to the dog owner. Wasn't available at the time, so the animal control officer was leaving the premises, and the person came out who didn't own the dog but was very attached to the dog, and the situation escalated very, very rapidly, and the vehicle was damaged. And the animal control officer got into his vehicle and then put on his camera. So as part of the working alone policy, what it did to our team was really reinforce the fact that they should be wearing their cameras at all times. And in this case, he wasn't wearing the camera because the dog owner wasn't there. So he thought, oh, well, dog owner's not here, I'll leave again. But what it did was certainly reinforce to him and the rest of the team that they, when they are out alone, they should have an emergency beacon and they should be wearing their camera at all times.
Mm-hmm.
That was reported to the police and has been followed up.
Do they carry alerts?
Yeah, they will. He'll have an emergency beacon with him.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's scary that something can escalate so quickly.
Yep.
and It's scary.
So you're not actually double teaming, you're just.
Sort of backup situation. Right. Someone please got a hand up.
Oh,
Could I just, the camera was on, the camera was being worn, but because the incident wasn't intended to happen, because the owner of the dog wasn't there, it wasn't turned on at that time.
Right.
Once the officer managed to get back to the vehicle safely and the person came back over again, that was the time when he could safely turn the camera on and record everything, and that was given to the police.
are there any other questions?
I mean,
Yes,
thanks,
you're
Richard.
probably going to, one I was going to ask for you.
No, sorry.
I'm trying to check, see what you're going to ask.
Thanks for the report, Jeff. I just wanted to make comment to, Lou. Just congratulate her on the success, firstly, of your Christmas but also the recycling that was done with it. It's fantastic to see that.
Yeah, it was good to go through it and work with the waste management team, because I think the council hadn't really done events using the team before, so it's been good to work through it, see how it all went. That's good. Yeah, thank you.
Question on reserves, Jeff. Not our reserve, but reserves within our rohi, which are the responsibility particularly of DOC. Steve?
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Visiting Carter's Reserve probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I don't think DOC have been out there for quite some time. The track is extremely overgrown, especially over the boardwalk with grasses, and quite dangerous for people walking along it, especially for elderly if they get caught up in the grass. But it's the growth of the blackberry that's taking over out there is just horrendous, but also there's creeper vines or something which is slowly suffocating all the native bush. And I'm just wondering if it needs something from council to be sent to DOC just to tell them they need to sort their act out, because it's not in a good state out there, really.
May I speak on behalf of, if Manapa Fox, our Hurunui-a-Rangi rep, was here, she'd also reiterate that and say that the harakeke out there, so the native flax, is in a really poor condition, and marae used to use Carter's Reserve, or do use Carter's Reserve as a source for flax, and they're currently unable to source flax from Carter's Reserve because of the poor state of the reserve. And she's raised that with me. So my feedback is council currently don't do anything on the reserve. It's not our reserve, it's Department of Conservation. It was taken back and was meant to be a part of a settlement process, and it hasn't become part of the settlement process. It is looked after mostly by DOC, but often by the Friends of Carter's Reserve. And you are correct, it's in a very poor state. So I'm more than happy to take on board from council feedback and contact Department of Conservation and express our concerns about the state of the reserve.
If you could, Jeff, do that on a CE to CE level and let us know how that goes, because it does affect our people who like to enjoy the natural resources in our rohe, and who actually look upon particularly Carter's Reserve with some, they see it as a bit of a taonga, and then we can take it from there, because the next step would be for me to talk to the minister directly about their response, or
increase our level of service and ask our Parks and Reserves team to have a look at it. But at this stage, I'm not proposing to increase the level of service, and because quite possibly the Parks and Reserve manager might come at me with.
It would be huge.
Yeah,
It's the work out there required would be huge.
And once you did it once, you'd be advised to always do it. No, don't go there.
and it's there, it's DOC state. So the other place where one could potentially put questions is to go to the local government and environment select committee and make a direct presentation at Parliament. at about the time when Doc is before select committee for its estimates. Don't you think, Grace?
Yeah, good timing.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
She might prefer to have a conversation with you than have a conversation at select committee with me. Yeah. There you go.
I was putting in the email today.
Don't worry, I remembered. I remember how cut up you were with the BlackBerry and getting back there. Are there any other questions at all? Got a substantive report and so someone to move that we receive the CE's report. Councillor Brittany, seconded Councillor Cherry Campbell, all in favour? Yes. Motion's carried. Thank you. 7.9, revocation of the Wairarapa Consolidated Bylaw 2019, Part 2 speed. Grace. So, here we go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors, I'm only talking about the technical process side of this. I'm not the roading manager, who is on leave. I'm hoping that the report is somewhat easy to understand. What's happened is we've had a new set of legislation that has come on board that now means that our setting of speed limits bylaw is no longer required, but that legislation does not automatically revoke the bylaw. So because of that, the whole three councils do have to resolve to revoke the bylaw, and at that point we also just had to make that small changes to part one being the introductory one. So that then does mean that we have reviewed part one within that 5-year time frame, which is somewhat useful. I am happy to take questions on it. South Wairarapa resolved to revoke the bylaw at their meeting last Wednesday, and Marsden's meeting is today, so I haven't had the update, but I don't suspect that it won't go through at Marsden either.
Is this Waka Kotahi getting their own way by stealth? Like the 2022 rule seems to be, I mean, we had this discussion previously around, we didn't want certain policies and principles until our people had a say. We only agreed to go as far as noting it. This seems to be them coming round the back door and getting that as a result through a slightly different door.
I couldn't possibly comment on that. As I said, I'm just here to do the report about the technical process of the revocation. It's not the roading. We're working on what we need to do, our speed management plan anyway, and that will obviously come to council when that gets developed. And I have checked, one thing I did check is the database does have all our roads in there anyway. And the gathering of this is that Waka Kotahi will advise and determine safe and appropriate speeds for councils to follow.
What happens, what's the consequence, and I'm not presupposing anything, but if the council didn't agree to revoke the bylaw, what happens?
The bylaw still stays there, but the primary legislation would supersede it.
But it would still be a message.
Yeah.
It'd still be a message.
But I also think too, you need to look at the options and the analysis about the decision for the community and whether we're going to confuse them by having a bylaw that really is non-existent and we can't do anything with versus the legislation as it is. And often if you're going to revoke a bylaw, you do need to do public consultation, but it was built into the legislation that because it's the revocation of a bylaw, we don't need to consult on this.
And I wonder why they did that.
Yeah. Transparency.
Yeah, so it's really a Clayton's item. Leave it in and it's powerless, take it out and it, yeah, I'll leave it in.
Same thing as if you left it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if we leave it in, and I think we probably are inviting someone, some bush lawyer somewhere to have a go about something. You know, someone who gets a speeding ticket somewhere saying, but the bylaw says, and they didn't. Messages are good, but I don't think we want to confuse people overly.
And we're addressing our own, we're going to be addressing our speeds anyway. Apparently.
Well, through a consultation process.
Yes.
But following road to zero.
I wonder, Solitaire, if you could explain, the thing that I can't quite understand is from reading through this, and I went and watched the South Wairarapa's conversation on it. I can't see that they seem to be quite urgent that we take away our control over local roads, but I can't see what control we really do have by maintaining the bylaw. Do you understand? Is there something that they're concerned about if we maintain our control, that we can actually affect change still, or is it really just a procedural thing and we don't have any teeth anymore to this?
I think we're always going to have teeth to control our own local roads and what speeds that we determine appropriate, because there is the word in their advice.
Yeah.
When you do set speeds through bylaws and you go to change speeds, you actually have quite a legislative process in the bylaw to do that.
Mhm.
The one thing I will say with this legislation is it appears that to be able to change speeds to suit what the community's needs are will be easier under this than what it would be under the bylaw. Just one thing to consider.
Mhm.
So what, you
Frustrating.
deserve a medal for listening to the South Wairarapa deliberations.
There were 3 parts to the video. It took quite a while to get to it, but
And so what was the tone of the discussion?
kind of resigned, like, well, this is what the government are doing, so we're going to go along with it. There were people who said, we don't agree with the road to zero, but it is what it is. So I was interested to hear what everyone here had to think. I think we should be pushing back. I think we should tell the government bugger off. No, we won't give you our control. This is what, you're taking control every which way right now. If this is something that they want from us, why don't we just say no? It's simple. And I think what Mark has said, we should give a message to them, or we could give a message by saying we're not going to do it. And subsequently, this is a plan with South Wairarapa and Masterton. If one of us disagree, it can't be changed. Is that correct? With the bylaw being through the 3 different councils.
We were kind of hoping it wouldn't get to that point.
Yeah. We do have to have an agreement between the.
It is a combined bylaw, and councils can adopt, like when the first suite came out of the whole lot of them, it was only Masterton and South Wairarapa. We still ran our own. I think the one thing just to remember, and from an officer level, if we pushed back and said we are not going to revoke the bylaw, we will need to consistently maintain 2 instruments for speed limits. We will need to do the speed limits in the NSLR, and that will always supersede a speed limit in a pre-existing bylaw. So if we keep the bylaw and it's different to the speed limits, the national stuff trumps the bylaw. So this is why it's just a technical paper saying we don't have a lot of choice in the matter, but the one thing that the legislation superseding the bylaw doesn't do is revoke the council's bylaw. We could have it, but we would be having to duplicate everything.
Yeah. One of the concerns at South Wairarapa, I don't know their names, one of the councillors raised was regarding the council's ability to set rural road speeds and how they have an easier access through local council to say, hey, this is a problem on our local rural road here that might be more difficult to actually access through this new system. Would you see that as a concern?
That's getting out of my area of expertise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels like forced compliance.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. I understand what you say, Sol, about in the hierarchy of authority, we're always at the bottom, or in fact, people are below us, which makes it even worse. But I just, we're road to zero and Waka Kotahi, everywhere I go, that's the topic of conversation. From mayors, deputies, public, it's everywhere. And the frustration from people around being not just told what to do, but forced to stand in a line and accept the fait accompli is really getting people grumpy. And I'm nervous from a council perspective to be seen at this point to be meekly falling into line. under the guise of we have no choice. I understand we have no choice, but does that automatically mean we just meekly turn our back?
And does it mean we just go with this and then the next little step that Kotahi will take is telling us where the funding they give us is spent and which roads they're going to be expecting it to be spent on?
We're going to consult, sorry.
I was just going to have one other thought. Do we have to make a decision on revoking this today? Can we not put it off till, say, an election where this might not be an issue anymore?
That was my thinking, councillor Ayling. I wonder if perhaps the council would prefer to put this off until perhaps the interim speed management review came back, and then you could consider them both at the same time,
Great idea.
rather than do them separately.
Yeah, because they are part of the same conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the point, Jeff, that I was going to, the question I was going to ask, point we made. We are going to consult on our road speed management plan. The council has already indicated it's uncomfortable with accepting Waka Kotahi's principles. We've registered the concern of a very large hunk of the constituency that is opposed to the Road to Zero plan and opposed to the speed level changes. And I think as elected representatives, listening right now is a good thing and supporting our people. So if there was a motion that we put that we defer consideration of this paper to a more appropriate time, or whatever words the mover would like to put, be willing to accept that.
I mean, we've said that we want to hear from our people as to what they think. If our people say nothing, then that encourages us to fall into line. If our people are quite strong in their feedback, then this is part of that same conversation. And then we can package up our response on behalf of our people and push it forward. That's how I would say.
Then we're doing this for our reasons. And I guess my worry in the back of my head is that, tell me where I'm wrong, Soph, is that we will aim to have meet the legislative requirements that we are authorised by Waka Kotahi to set our own speed limits. That's the process we're going to go through, right? It's the goal. But in gaining that, or that approval from Waka Kotahi, they're going to assess us against their principles and their expectations according to the national policy statement and to their Road to Zero policy, right? So we're going to hit that wall anyway of conversation. And I think down the line, you might see a government change its mind, or another government change the policy, and to preempt what our constituents are saying might not be helpful.
I just
Councillor Cherry Campbell.
Just a question. If we vote against resolving or you delay, is that going to impact the funding that we get from the Waka Kotahi, the 51%? For our roads?
I couldn't answer that because all this is doing, if we don't revoke the bylaw, it means we still have the bylaw, but we still have to comply with everything Waka Kotahi tells us. So it's a political decision not to revoke the bylaw, but it does create
Additional work for you, for the
So what we need
officers
to
and
do.
staff.
and it does create some confusion because the bylaw is in essence null and void because of the legislation.
And additional work for staff equals additional costs and expenses on our ratepayers
But this is more of a,
as well.
this is more of a political governance statement, I guess, that we're trying to keep the horse in front of the cart, not the other way around. Waka Kotahi feels to me like they want to proceed down their stated Road to Zero and just steamroll over road users. I'm trying to advocate for the road users and keep their views front of mind. If this is okay, this might be a bit symbolic and it might create a little bit of extra work in the meantime. And agree with what Jeff said, we're not talking a long time, but I'm just trying to keep us positioned on the right side of public opinion locally until we hear it.
Yeah.
We haven't heard it yet.
It is appearing like a political, we get, so it's acknowledging the technicalities and acknowledging the administrative requirement, acknowledging that they're done to us what they're going to done to us anyway. But it's a political statement and an expression of annoyance. I mean, it's unusual for a government to pass legislation that overrides the authority of a territorial authority and the people without consulting with them.
And I guess until such time
Unusual.
as we do have differential speed limits, it doesn't actually create any extra work, does it, Solitaire?
We do have, we will have to maintain 2 registers. We've already migrated to the register as we need to do for what Waka Kotahi are saying in their land transport rule. All this paper is just revoke the bylaw because it has no teeth and has been superseded by legislation.
So we'll
So,
maintain 2 registers for a period of time and.
Yeah.
and then we bring the paper back to council to revoke.
Once we've consulted.
I think we will never use the bylaw again. But we will have to still have it.
We could defer the payment.
And we will have to have our own part 1. Because South Wairarapa has agreed to do that. They've also resolved to make the minor amendments to the other parts to reflect their revocation of part 11 speed. So there will be some CDC own parts of our set of consolidated bylaws.
Awesome.
So we can, on the recommendations, can we, because I noticed that they are note. Can we still note all of those as part of the discussions we've had, but the recommendations that are to resolve, can they be deferred until we've consulted?
With the governance group.
7 and 8.
We'll make that. Cool.
Right, and that will just clear up some stuff for next time.
So that we're making that
7 and 8.
Yeah.
in full
7 and 8
arenas
are deferred.
Yeah, it just, I was gonna say, it did just seem that South Wairarapa were very hesitant to make their decision because they were saying Carterton haven't spoke about this, Masterton haven't spoken about this. We don't really know which way to go. And so I feel like we're in a better position now to make our decision. They've made their decision and Masterton will be in a better position again, potentially if it's today or tomorrow. I feel like they were first came off the rank to make this decision and they felt they had to go along with what was put in front of them. And I feel like we should challenge that.
I had a conversation with one of their councillors who felt exactly that. They were put in a position where they had to accept what was put in front of them.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Councillor Gallen, thoughts? Where the conversation is moving in the space of receiving, noting 1 to 6 and potentially deferring 7 and 8.
I think push back, yeah, don't go with the flow, don't let them annoy us.
Feisty?
I'm not that feisty on this one. Totally happy to resolve to revoke it. I think it's what it is. It's a bit of a lost cause.
Our battles.
Yeah, and it's just making extra work. I'm happy to wait and hold off the conversation, whatever, but I'd be also happy to revoke it.
So Lawrence, going to deep consideration.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think we should ask the officers to involved in a whole bunch of extra work for a pointless gesture. How much extra work, Solitaire?
Pointless.
It will be the maintaining of it, it'll be the keeping the bylaw up, it'll be then making sure that our part.
Is that like 5 minutes a month or 3 hours a week?
Not going to be that much and we're never going to use it. It's just, we will just have to maintain it. We'll have to have it on our website. So there will be common stuff.
It's already there.
Take it down.
It's already there. Don't
No,
take it
no, we
down.
will have to amend it because South Wairarapa will have to come off it because it was a consolidated bylaw between the 3 councils. So there will have to be some
They
work
might
going
revisit
through it to remove
They might revisit after this,
references.
depending on this.
They've already revoked it.
All right, Councillor Della, I don't know, I've heard from you.
Yeah, deep thought. Yeah, I'm either way. I'm not in favour of Waka Kotahi bullying us into this, and that's what I can see is happening. So yeah, my preference would be to defer it, although as Lou has already said, it's a little bit of a lost cause, but I think we've got to signal to them and guarantee things.
So I'm going to.
Yeah.
Yes, you could.
For the record, I would like to let the councillors know that in no situation should you feel obliged to take officers' recommendations. You are the governance group. We're providing our advice and expertise, but you should not feel obliged to follow our recommendations blindly if that's not what you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to read in the room. I'm going to say that there seems to be consensus that we receive and note from 1 to 6. And I will test that thought, that view now. So I am going to put recommendation 1 that we receive the report. So Ned Mover and seconder. Councillor Cherry Campbell, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favour? Motion's carried. Recommendation 2, that we note Waka Kotahi provides advice to inform decisions on setting speed limits in Carlton District. Could we take them as a block? Yeah. Shall I take I'll take 2 to 6 as one. And I look for a mover and a seconder. Someone to move? Councillor Newman, seconded. Councillor Cherry Campbell. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? 2 to 6 are carried. Recommendation 7, the amendment being proposed that we defer. Well, I think we'll take those as 2, that recommendations 7 and 8 be deferred.
Pending.
Sorry?
Do you need to put the motion and let it fail, not get a mover or a second?
Or we amend it, the motion. Now, we can take it one of the, either way. We can move, someone to move that we amend the motion for 7.
We're going to have to amend it if we want to delay it until we
Yeah.
had a response on the.
Or I can put it as it is, and if it fails, it fails.
Yeah, I think you put both of those and see whether they pass or not.
Yep.
And if they fail, then we
Then
can
we move
determine
to.
what goes in its place.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put 7 and 8 together. The recommendations as that the council moves that we resolve, well, take it as read for 7 and 8, taken as one, someone to move. Oh, someone to second. Councillor Della. Seconded. Councillor Gallen.
This is moving 7, 8 as they are.
And we put
correct.
we'll put the votes for ayes and nays, and if it fails, it fails.
I've got very lost.
Councillor Della's moved, Councillor Newman has seconded 7 and 8 as they stand.
Yeah.
As written.
As
So
As
if you
written.
want the council to revoke, then
Yes,
you
you
vote
vote.
yes. If you don't want the council to vote,
You'll vote no.
Cool. Thank you for the phone.
Just from a technical perspective, can you vote against something that you've moved?
Yes,
Yes, you can.
yes, you can.
That was
All moving and seconding does is put it on the table.
Put it on the table, so that the decision can be taken. Okay, the motion has been moved by Councillor Dallin and seconded by Councillor Gallen. All in favour? Say aye.
Aye.
Councillor Newman,
To be different.
all opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't care, so I'm just going to abstain.
I said as well, but.
Councillor Cherry Campbell, the motions have failed. Okay, so let's have a conversation around what we would like to say. And I'm
think
looking for someone to move.
Well, I think it's along the lines of what Jeff said, that we resolve to defer any decision around the consolidated bylaw until such time as public
Interim speed
consultation, the interim speed management plan.
Consultation feedback has been received.
Thank you.
Are you good with that wording, Robin? Just read it, say it again, Dale, just make sure.
Well, Jeff.
Resolve to defer items 7 and 8
Well, they failed actually, so go on.
until the consultation on the interim speed management plan has been received by council.
I'm happy to move that, Your Worship.
I'll second it.
Seconded, councillor Alien. I'll take councillor Alien. Thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? No one against. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks, Sol.
Thank you.
You don't have to give your certificate back. You did well.
Well, I'm trying to prove Johannes' lead.
Yeah, you knew the right time to go, didn't you? Yeah.
Cyclone and rain.
Yeah.
He might be watching.
He bailed out on the cyclone and he bailed out on the revoking of the bylaw. Okay. 7:10, Wairarapa Policy Working Group.
Thank you, Your
Thank you.
Worship. This one may be slightly less contentious than the last paper, and it's definitely much more in my comfort zone. So this is the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, which the councillors at their inaugural meeting did choose to have Councillor Cherry Campbell and Councillor Cretney be the representatives on it. What we have done is we have brought the terms of reference to the group and to get consensus decision on who should be the chair of that group. The recommendation for Councillor Cherry Campbell to be the chair actually came from our northern counterparts who have seen her in action at the Wairarapa Combined District Plan, and being a very experienced leader in this field that was well supported by the other councils.
I'm going to move straight to resolutions. Everyone's read the paper and we're pretty clear. I think I don't expect this to be very controversial at all. So with your acceptance, I will move straight to recommendations. Can I have someone move that we approve the Wairarapa Working Group Terms of Reference 2022 to 25? Councillor Newman. Councillor Gallen. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. A second recommendation that the council appoints Councillor Robin Cherry Campbell as the chairperson of the working group. Councillor Della, Councillor Cretney. All in favour?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you. And
That's how you do a paper.
yeah, well done. There you go. Tell Johannes that's how it's done. Further appointments to external bodies, joint committees and other groups. Kelly?
I'm happy to
Yeah.
lead this, so
I think we're pretty
again, it's relatively straightforward. Upper Rumahanga River Management Advisory Group and the Rimutaka Transport Group. So it's confirmation of those appointments to those two groups.
Someone to move, please?
Yeah.
Councillor Cherry Campbell, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Very good.
Terms of reference for two advisory groups. You've all been well involved in this, and I'm going to take the documents as read. Moving to first page 142, recommendation. The council confirms the terms of reference to the Wastewater Treatment Advisory Group and the People and Places Advisory Group. Someone to move, please. Deputy Mayor, second, Councillor Robin Cherry Campbell. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Thank you. 7.13. Local Government Official Information and Meeting Act requests. We're looking to note the report. Receive the report. Are there any questions, any at all for CE on this paper?
No question, but just my usual comment. It just blows you away. The stuff that, Parliament demanding through OIA, putting our staff, in Massey University, when you see the list of things that they want
Yeah.
on a small council.
Do we charge Massey University when they want stuff like this?
It's a block of time that we allow for every Lagoima, and then if it goes beyond that, we will charge beyond. We will go back to them and say, we think your Lagoima is going to take, 19 hours and the cost for that will be X. Do you want to review your request or do you want to carry on and pay the fee? So
Well, the two that I find remarkable that stand out of this is the one from Kiwi Rail
Yeah,
asking us to give them information on consents that they hold with us.
Mm.
We've got to help them tidy up their internal paperwork
Mm.
through a Lagoima.
sounds like a press release to me.
And the second one below that is newsroom saying, can you please email me today if possible? It's like we're just hanging around waiting for their request. And then
Well, no, the question is the Lagoima actually, them asking if it's possible? Or is the Lagoima them asking for the
they're
information?
responding, no, it's not
Because the
possible.
answer is very clear. No, it's not possible.
Let me think about it, no.
But you know, that just, I mean, again, Lagoima was set up for local people or stakeholders in the district to ask questions that they truly want an answer to, not to help some research assistant develop their own thesis or
That's what these
or
look
Kiwi
like.
Rail to sort out their own internal admin. I just find it an abuse of the process, but I say that every time.
Do we have to,
Hey, we just put a record button on next time.
and I guess the other question I have, Dale, is whether or not we have to put in a Lagoima ourselves to find out who in Parliament put a Lagoima on us
Very vague.
and why. All right.
My team are very patient.
Yeah.
You do a great job.
So someone like to move that we receive the report. Thank you, councillor Cretney, councillor Hayling, all in favour?
Grudgingly.
Begrudgingly. That is carried. Moving on. And we are headed on to conclusion of public.